Why do the Christian right oppose welfare, even though Jesus said give to the poor? They believe that's an individual or church duty, not a government one. Many of them are active donors to their own churches of membership. The ones I know would rather give to a church soup kitchen than pay it in taxes because they feel taxpayer money is wasted. I don't know that they are right, but their idea that taxes are largely spent on government employee salaries instead of really assisting the poor is a big deal for them. Especially since I'm from an area where you have to be related to someone important to land a good government job. They have an issue with the government being the mechanism to providing welfare. There are many reasons why that is the case, from inefficient disbursement of the money to the scope of who receives it. Oftentimes, bills that appropriate funds to programs are full of other things that aren't directly related to the programs the bills are named after. And then there is the influence of media personalities. Lastly, churches in the West in general are incredibly charitable, so they feel that they are in fact doing as Jesus taught. Why have the government do something inefficiently when you are already giving a portion of your resources to the poor? A lot of it has to do with the Protestant Reformation in the 1600s and anti-government sentiments. Catholic governments have historically been much more charitable, whereas the Reformers were more pull-yourself-up-by-your-own-bootstraps type people, in response to what they felt was an overbearing government who wouldn't let them practice Lutheranism, Calvinism. Those people emigrated to the US who were very sensitive about keeping government small. It might also have something to do with the Bible verses about not worshiping princes, i.e., government. It's okay to accept charity from the church, but it's not okay to rely on princes. But mostly it's a culture that's developed over hundreds of years, which is more political than biblical. I don't think it's the actual welfare or money that's the issue. It's the way it's doled out. As soon as someone actually gets off the ground and a job that can just almost put them above the poverty line, their welfare is cut, thus resulting in them actually losing for doing better. And thus the system doesn't actually encourage the individual doing better. Alongside this, the taxes taken from welfare realistically only have about a 45 to 60% actually going to the recipient. The rest goes to government employees in horribly inefficient processes. Coming from a somewhat conservative neutral stance on most economic issues, welfare is kind of an outdated system and is literally set up for failure, both for the impoverished and the taxpayer. It can be better and hypothetically very effective if we had the right policies, processes, programs in place. Unfortunately, we don't have very effective people in government offices for the most part. They don't like state-mandated charity. They think it should be up to the person if they want to give or can give anything. There are those that believe that it should be churches, not the government, that offers charity. Then they conveniently add the caveat that the person getting charity must meet their moral standards. Please show me where this is a biblical requirement. There is also the growth of prosperity ministries, which often teach that being poor is a moral failing in and of itself. You seem adept at speaking for people. Isn't this because people commonly don't trust their governments? They think that the government will just steal, mismanage the money. I've never heard any Christian I know say they oppose welfare. Not a Christian. But I know a lot of Christians encourage voluntary charity. Give to the poor out of the goodness of your own heart, over mandatory charity like welfare. My grandparents give 10% of their money to the local church. And to them it's more like a social club where they can see all their friends and family every weekend, and they do charity stuff through the week. I think Christians are on the right for the pro-life viewpoint more than the welfare reasons. Christian, religious charities tend to be the best bang for your buck donation-wise. They are going to give to people they deem worthy over just giving to everybody. Someone else pointed this out like they are wrong for it. But in that case I think most people would rather help out family than some random. So I can't see the fault in that. If we didn't have a two-party system they would probably differ radically from what they are now. Someone from a country with a multi-party system would probably know. I think that most everyone believes in giving to the poor. But everyone has different ideas of how it should be done. Government programs versus private charities kinda thing. What a great question, I'd be more than happy to answer. See, there's these things called taxes that are imposed on the population without consent. That's called theft. The government steals money from you, then mismanaged it, skims some off the top in what you call corruption. Have a blessed day. I would have to believe it's because they have no guarantee that welfare does not go to non-Christians or people with lifestyles they do not approve of. The other reason is probably because the pastor says vote Republican, so they do. I don't think they are anti-altruism. I think it's pretty clear they are reluctant to have the federal government manage the welfare. Giving. You can give to the poor without stealing it from someone else first. It all comes down to culture. Now, I am myself a Christian. First. And a socialist. Second. Most of them Christian right people ain't Christian really. It's always been like that. Just like in medieval times. Much of Europe was Christian. People called themselves Christian, but the Bible and sermons were in Latin, which they didn't understand. Then you had all the German Christians who supported Nazism and Hitler. Most of those fascist regimes were supported by self-identified Christians. Nowadays, it basically boils down to a dislike of Washington and the government. That's the old folklore of capitalism. Government is always inefficient. Private stuff is good. The main reason we have government welfare today is because before there was government welfare, there was only private, religious charities. These were so inefficient and corrupt that people finally came to the conclusion that the best way to administer welfare is through a government controlled by the people. Regardless of how pure and wholesome some religious charity might be, they ain't subject to any sort of democratic control. They don't answer to nobody. Yet with the government, we like to complain about it, but at the end of the day, you get to vote and change governments and change policies. Why do the Christian right give more to charity, by an absurd margin, at all income brackets, than the secular left who demands taxation to help the same groups? You can answer the question by changing it. Also, I'd recommend asking, why is income inequality and affordable housing worst in blue voting areas? Quote. Or, why are most of these extreme incidents of police brutality and racial injustice coming from neighborhoods who have voted Democrat for 50 years? Quote. There's a disconnect between what the parties say is their ideology and how they behave when it regards the disenfranchised. Republicans have horrific policy positions, but their behavior, in practice, tends to not be so bad. While Democrats have ideal policy positions, but something is horribly wrong when it comes to putting them into practice. Edit. You can see some actual sources and concrete examples of the above in a response to the one person who asked for them. The rest of the replies, as of this edit, are trash and treated as such. He also said love thy neighbor, was opposed to selling things in churches and judge not lest ye be judged. They interpret the source material differently and or flat ignore what they don't like.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.